Hello everyone, this is Tonya Meyer and you are watching Crafty Enchantments on YouTube. Today I am making some fun cards using the new Pink and Main Floral Wings stamp and coordinating die set. This stamp set actually features three large images. It has a dragonfly, a butterfly, and a bee. And then it has several sentiments in the set. And the sentiments, I think one of the sentiments is "Thank you, my friend. Life is beautiful with you in it." It says, "Hope you have the best birthday ever. Get well soon. You have been so thoughtful. Always on my mind and in my heart." Has happy anniversary and congratulations. And those are all written in a really pretty, like a cursive sort of. This is a great stamp set, and I actually had been waiting for it to come out for quite a while because I fell in love with this dragonfly. The stamp set, I believe, was originally released as part of a kit. It may have been last year or early, like January this year, and I missed the kit, and I was so hoping that they were going to release it as part of their regular line, and they finally did. I believe this came out in July. So of course I snatched it up as soon as I could get my hands on it and grabbed the coordinating die set that goes with it. It cuts out the images, and I got it and I had to start playing with it. And of course I had to start playing with the dragonfly immediately because that's my absolute favorite image from the set. So for the first card that I'm going to make, I just basically colored up my dragonfly using my Copic markers, and nothing special here, just some basic coloring. I think I did like 2 color blends on everything pretty much. The image is pretty small. I can tell you exactly how much, what the size is. So the dragonfly measures from wingtip to wingtip. It's about a little over 3.5 inches. So it's pretty sizable, which is nice because then you can make it a focal point on your card. And then from top to bottom, at the widest point, it's about 2.25 inches. So it's a good sized stamp. And then the butterfly is about 3.5 inches side to side, and it is about, let's see, the widest point, it's probably about almost 2.75 inches top to bottom. And the bee is 3.25 by about 2 inches. So they're all really good size stamps, great for card focal points. You could probably do tags with these. These would be great for doing mixed media. So lots of different options with these beautiful stamps. So I'm just basically coloring them up, and I started out coloring my flowers a certain color. I was going to do yellow for this, I believe it's a daisy, and I decided I didn't like it, so you'll see me fuss with it here a little bit. I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to put on a little bit of music and finishing up the coloring on this, and I will pop back in just a minute. Okay, everybody, I am back. I am just finishing up this image. I'm adding a little bit of a shadow around the outside of the image, and I kind of regretted doing this, but it turns out in the end I ended up die cutting it and everything worked out fine. So for my second image, I'm using the butterfly here. I am stamping this with some VersaFine, and I didn't mention it before, but I am stamping these onto Nina 110-pound cardstock. So there's my image. I love the VersaFine. It's nice and crisp. It's what I use for watercoloring. So what I'm doing now is I saw recently Gina K had done a video about this technique, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. She did this with her butterfly stamp set and did sort of a, I would call it rustic. I think she referred to it as retro look on her butterflies, but basically it just involves taking a colored pencil. You can use any kind of white colored pencil. It doesn't have to be a specific brand. Anything you should work for this. I chose to use my Prismacolor, and you basically just get a nice sharp point on your pencil, and then you go in and you add highlights in certain areas on your stamped image. And it's very hard to see on the cardstock, so I did have to keep picking it up and holding it under the light to see, to make sure I wasn't missing any areas on my stamped image. So I went through the whole entire image, just adding in little, it's basically highlight. That's kind of the way I looked at it, is like adding highlights to a stamped image that isn't colored yet, which seems kind of counterintuitive until you see the magic happen. So this process really did not take long at all. In fact, this takes a lot less time than actually coloring an image with Copic markers. So it's very foolproof. Anyone can do this. Super easy, and the result is beautiful. So I am done adding in my highlights, and I am going to bring in my Simon Says stamp Positively Saturated inks here. These are sort of brand new to me. I got a bunch of their inks, and I'm really loving them. They're very juicy. So I'm going to add in just color, and I'm basically going to go from right to left on this image. I did have a little bit of ink. It kind of, the VersaFine ink kind of bled a little bit and smushed around. And I don't know if that's because it wasn't entirely dry. VersaFine can stay wet a little bit longer, and I did not heat set this, but it turned out okay. So I didn't worry about it too much. I just went over it with a little bit darker color. So I used Royal, and then I used, I think the first one was Marine. It was a little too light. I think this technique kind of works better when you're using bold colors. I don't know that it would work as well on lighter colors. Bold colors are going to work better for this. And then on the other half of the butterfly, I went in with some violets and some purples, just kind of doing my purple and blue thing. I think it turned out well. I did mix in a little bit of purple on this side too, just to get a little variation in my colors. I'm going to go back in with a little bit. This is Orchid, which is a little bit darker color. I just love how this looks, and you can see the white on there when you're ink blending, but it really shows up when you do the final step of this technique. So I'm just looking at it, making sure I'm happy with my ink blending here. Just gonna blend a little bit more. And then I am going to bring in a soft cloth, and I'm just using a microfiber towel. I keep these in my craft room. I use them when I watercolor, when I'm going to do something messy. And I am wiping away the ink from that white pencil. And you get this beautiful highlight that shows up in your image, and is so pretty. So I decided to do it again. So I grabbed another piece of cardstock, stamped another butterfly, again with VersaFine ink. But this time I'm going to be more detailed with my colors. I'm going to add them in a little bit finer areas using, excuse me, repositioning myself here. Using them with my detail blending brushes to get some more variation of color in there, and kind of do some different types of coloring with the ink blending brushes. And these brushes are super small, so they're great for getting into small areas. I know a lot of, I know a few companies who actually sell these. I believe Altenew is one of them. These are not Altenew. I actually got mine off of Amazon, and all they are is just makeup brushes. And I got them fairly cheap. I think they were 3 or 4 to a set. And I bought, I think, 3 or 4 sets of them, and they were fairly inexpensive. I sometimes go to Amazon and buy my supplies like this, just supplies that you're using to make cards, which you can get a little bit cheaper on Amazon. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but I look at it like if I can save money buying things like blending brushes or post-it tape or erasers, whatever the thing is that I need to complete my cards on Amazon and save a few dollars and spend more money someplace else, patronizing my favorite stamp companies, buying their stamps and their dies and their hot foil plates, then I would rather do that. So that's just my personal preference. So here I am going back in on the floral side of this image, and I did a blend of 2 colors. So I did purple, and then I believe I did the marine color, and it gives me these beautiful flowers that have these kind of 2-tone colors. And for my leaves here, I'm going to go in with a little cadet ink at the base of all the leaves, and then I'm going to go in with a little sunshine ink, and I'm going to make some beautiful green leaves. I really love how this turned out. This was so fun to see this color change, just adding a little bit of yellow because blue and green make yellow, and you get these beautiful leaves. And these Simon Says stamp inks just really blend beautifully. If you're a fan of Distress Oxide inks or regular Distress inks, I think these are along the same lines. Obviously, they're a little bit different ink, a little bit different consistency, but they really are vibrant and they're very fun to work with and very easy to blend. So I'm just adding in some finishing touches here, coloring in my berries, and I'm going to color in those little tiny flower buds here. And with this particular image, I made a little bit of a mistake because I didn't look at the die closely enough and didn't realize that the die does not cut around all of those areas in the butterfly. I'm going to go ahead and wipe away my ink that's resting on top of that colored pencil, and that's where the magic happens. So you get this beautiful image. And I believe I go back in here and add in a few more darker areas. Just a little bit of color in a few places. And then I'm going to take the coordinating die and I'm going to cut this out. And I did use some repositionable highlighter tape on that. And this is where I realized I made a mistake because the die doesn't cut out around those little berries right there next to the antenna. So I tried to fix it by ink blending a little bit into the background, trying to make it sort of blend out, look like it belonged, and it really didn't. In the end, I went in and fussy cut around the antenna and around those berries, and it worked out fine. And then I do go back with a little bit of the sunshine ink, just what was left on my ink blending brush here. And I added in a little bit more yellow in some of the areas that were a little white. Plus there's a little bit of in some of the areas behind the flowers, there's a little bit of white. So I went ahead and kind of filled that in to make it look more full, more lush. It looks very pretty and it makes me so happy. These stamps just make me so happy. And you can see I got 2 very different looks with the butterflies. So this one is very dramatic. I'm going back in and adding a little bit of blue into those flowers because I like that that mix of colors with the blue and the purple. It turned out so awesome. But I think this was this particular image was very dramatic. I think this would be you could make some very unique cards with these, and I think you could even do some really cool sympathy cards with these. So I'm going to die cut this, and you can see my highlighter tape is on there that I used. I get my highlighter tape from Amazon. It's a great repositionable tape. And it doesn't leave a sticky residue. That's the best part. So I have everything die cut now, and I will bring in my dragonfly here in a minute. Yep, there it is, and that is all three of my images all colored up. Very different looks for all three between the ink blending and the Copic coloring. So now I'm going to start working on my cards. For this, I'm embossing using the Simon Says Stamp Dribble Dot embossing folder. This embossing folder is newer, and it has this great circular emboss detail. So it gives a lot of texture, I guess, to your cards. And so I use that for all three pieces of my background cardstock. So this kind of teal blue color, a piece of black cardstock, and a piece of yellow cardstock. And I did mist the paper before I ran it through my die cutting machine. And for my first card with the yellow embossed paper, I just added some dimensional foam and I popped that onto a teal colored mat, basically. And I'm just gonna use my my scoring thing to get it lined up properly, because you know me and you know I can't line things up without it. So I got that all lined up. I just love the embossed detail on this background. I think this is my new favorite embossing folder. So for my first butterfly, I did use a bunch of dimensional foam on the back of it. And I kind of had to do that because I fussy cut around that upper part of it. But that was fine. So I'm just layering this onto my card base here and getting it centered. And you can see that these images, these are A2 size cards. So the images do take up quite a bit of space on an A2 size card. So just keep that in mind. You really don't need much of anything else. For my sentiment, I am using the Tailored Expression Simple Strips in Reverse. This is the Love set. So these are pre-printed sentiment strips, which are awesome when you're putting cards together. You don't have to think about your sentiment. You don't have to heat emboss or stamp anything. You just use the simple strips. For this one, I used the asymmetrical die and just die cut out the strips with the pre-printed messages and just pop that up with some dimensional foam onto my card. And I'm mounting this onto a A2 size card base made from 110 pound cardstock. So that's my first card. For my second card, there's my cute little Barely Arts Glue coffee cup holder, Death Before Decaf. For my other two cards, since I didn't have to fussy cut these, what I did was I used the dies and I just cut out additional shadow images, basically, with the dies from some black cardstock, and I just glued those together to make them a little bit more dimensional. For my dragonfly card, I am using this is the Pink Fresh Studio Folk Edge Circles. I cut that from some Tonic Studios. I don't remember the name of this cardstock. It is iridescent cardstock. It's one of my favorites. I will link it below. So I cut that out and I'm going to just add some glue to the back of that and center that on my card here. And I'll just put a little stamp block on top of it to make sure that that glue adheres. I wasn't sure how that would adhere with this background being so textured, but it worked out pretty well. And then I'm going to position my dragonfly. I will add some glue to the back of that as well and kind of put it at an angle in that circle. I think this card just turned out beautiful. I love this dragonfly and I can't wait to make more cards with this. I was so happy. I put a ton of glue on it. I want to make sure it's not going anywhere. So again, I'll put my little stamping block there. And then for my sentiment on this one, I had the "You're a Great Friend" out there, and I ultimately did not use that. I ultimately used, I believe it was "Sending Hugs." Yes, I used the "Sending Hugs" sentiment instead of the "You're a Great Friend." These sentiments are also from Pink Fresh Studio. These are the Perfect Sentiments hot foil plates. And then I use the coordinating die instead of using dimensional foam, and I just glued some extras behind it to give it a little bit of dimension. It worked out well. I don't like having to use dimensional foam on these because they're so small, and I just can't. I don't have any small dimensional foam strips, so for me to cut down dimensional foam to make it work is kind of a pain. So I really like layering up the die cuts. Thank you, Jennifer McGuire, for coming up with that idea. I know we're all doing that. So I just did that, and then I'm gonna just put my block on it, and I will add it. I use some glue here again on this. And then for my final card, again, I'm gonna use my simple strips from Tailored Expressions, and I'm gonna just pop this black background onto my card base here using some dimensional foam. And lining it up again with my scoring board here to make sure I get it on there straight. Pretty good. Not too crooked today. And I tried to use some dimensional foam on the ends of this and it did not work out. So I had to cut it a little bit and then I had to fiddle with it. I finally got it on there. So, and then for the yellow card, I didn't add a lot of bling to these because I think the images speak for themselves. They're so beautiful. I did add a few sequins to the yellow butterfly card, but I didn't really add anything to the others. And then since I had to take up my simple strips, it got a little bit bent, and I think it's on a white card base, so it kind of, you could see kind of the white coming through. So I just used a Copic marker to kind of color that in and make it look black again. A nice little trick that you can do with your sentiment strips. So there is my cards today. I really thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed these cards, and I hope you have some inspiration to create some of your own. Thanks so much. Goodbye.